Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something we all grapple with, I think, consistency.
Definitely.
You've got those goals, that big rush of excitement at the start, but actually staying on track, that can feel like trying to, hold on to smoke.
Yeah, it really can.
So we've pulled together some really fascinating perspectives here. We're aiming to sort of shortcut your understanding.
You've got insights from people like Jim Rohn, Steve Harvey.
Motivational heavyweights,
Yeah.
and also an audiobook that really digs into the mechanics of consistency.
Plus some very practical tips from English language learning resources, actually.
Yeah, excellent English learning and English Avenue. And, a few thoughts I've been mulling over myself.
So the goal today is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, we want to pull out the core ideas about consistency, look at why it's so powerful.
And give you real strategies, things you could actually do.
Exactly. We want you leaving this feeling empowered, clear on the next step, not just, bogged down with information.
Yeah. And what's interesting is how all these different sources, whether it's Steve Harvey firing you up or a language guy talking about daily words, they all seem to point back to the same fundamental truth. You get there through consistent effort. It's not magic.
Okay, so let's jump right in that core question. Motivation versus consistency. What's the real deal?
We all love feeling motivated, right? That ready to conquer the world feeling.
Oh, yeah. But it doesn't last, does it?
Nope. Steve Harvey, he nails it. He says motivation's like a spark.
A spark. Yeah, I like that. Bright, exciting.
But needs fuel. Otherwise, PFT, it just fades out fast.
And that's where the other side comes in, right? Discipline.
Exactly. Discipline fueled by consistent action. That's the steady burn. It doesn't need that initial flash.
It's reliable.
Totally. Both Harvey and, interestingly, the excellent English learning folks emphasize this. It's the discipline that keeps you going when the excitement inevitably dips.
So successful people aren't just waiting around to feel inspired.
Not at all. That's a key insight from the Consistency audiobook, too. They build habits.
Ah, habits.
Yeah, habits that drive the action, no matter how they feel that day.
It's about doing it anyway, not waiting for the perfect mood.
Precisely. It reminds me of that Jim Rohn sign.
Oh, yeah.
Don't miss the precious present.
Simple but powerful.
It really is. It highlights how easily days just slip by if you're not taking those small, consistent actions.
And those missed days, those small neglects, they add up, don't they?
They absolutely do. Which brings us to the power of those small actions when you do take them.
Right, the flip side.
The excellent English learning resource has this great image. Consistency is like planting a tree.
Okay.
You don't see it much at first, maybe nothing. But if you keep watering it, keep putting in that consistent effort.
Then eventually you get real growth. Significant growth.
Exactly. It's inevitable with consistent care.
And that ties straight into the compound effect, doesn't it?
It does. The audiobook mentions it. Your notes mention it.
It's this idea that tiny improvements, like even just 1% better each day.
Seems like nothing in the moment.
Right. But over time, it leads to this huge exponential growth. It's almost counterintuitive.
It really is. Steve Harvey has another good analogy here. Climbing a mountain.
You don't just leap to the top.
Exactly. It's all about those small, steady, consistent steps upward.
Incremental progress.
And excellent English learning advises focusing just on that next small win.
Not the whole huge mountain journey.
Right. Don't get overwhelmed by the summit. Just focus on the step right in front of you. Makes it much less daunting.
Okay, so we get why it's crucial. But the big question for anyone listening is probably how. How do you actually build this unbreakable consistency, especially if you struggle with it?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And thankfully, this sort of has given us some very practical starting points.
Good. Like what?
Well, a really key one from excellent English learning is to start small, like almost laughably small.
Micro habits.
Exactly. Learning just, say, 5 new words a day if you're learning a language, or 5 minutes of exercise. Tiny things.
Why so small, though?
Because it builds momentum with almost zero resistance.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue you can't do something for 5 minutes.
Makes sense. Get the ball rolling gently. Okay, so you start small. Then how do you keep it going? How do you stay accountable?
Tracking. This comes up again and again. Journals, apps.
Seeing the progress.
Yes. Seeing those check marks, those completed days, it's motivating in itself. The audiobook also mentions making a public commitment.
Ah, telling someone else increases the stakes a bit.
Definitely. Even just tracking for yourself makes it visible. makes the commitment feel more real.
And making it a habit, making it automatic, that seems vital too.
Absolutely. The goal is to get it out of the realm of decision-making as much as possible.
How do you do that?
Integrate it into your existing routine. Excellent English learning suggests doing it at the same time every day.
Like habit stacking.
Precisely. Attach the new habit to something you already do. Practice your Spanish while your coffee brews, that kind of thing.
Okay. And they also mentioned something called the 2-minute rule.
Yes. Another great little trick. If a task feels big or you're resisting, just commit to doing it for 2 minutes.
Just 2 minutes.
Often that's enough to break the inertia. Once you've started, it's much easier to keep going.
I like that. Very low barrier to entry. And wasn't there another quick technique, the 5-second rule from the audiobook?
That's right. Mel Robbins technique. When you have the impulse to act on your habit,
Yeah.
count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Shay.
Yeah.
And physically move before your brain can talk you out of it.
Just short-circuiting the hesitation.
Exactly. Interrupting that pattern of procrastination.
Okay. And connected to making things easier. The audiobook talks about eliminating decision fatigue. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is about conserving your willpower, your mental energy.
Because making decisions drains us.
It really does. So the more you can automate your routines, the less you have to decide whether or not to do your consistent habit.
Like laying out your gym clothes the night before.
Perfect example.
Hmm.
Or having a set time block for focused work. It removes the debate, frees up that mental energy.
Makes sticking to it easier when you're tired or stressed.
Definitely. Now, what about when it just feels hard? When sticking to it is uncomfortable?
Yeah, the discomfort zone. Jim Rohn talks a lot about this.
He really does. His point is powerful.
Yep.
Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. You have to embrace that discomfort.
Reframe it almost.
Yes. See those difficult tasks not as things to avoid, but as chances to get stronger, to build resilience.
He also said something interesting, that the discomfort of a new habit is like the feeling of your identity changing.
Yeah, it's the sensation of you becoming the kind of person who does this thing consistently. It's stretching who you are.
That's a really cool way to think about it. Okay, so embrace discomfort. What else builds that inner strength? Self-control.
The audiobook links this to delaying gratification.
Choosing the long-term benefit over the short-term pleasure.
Exactly. It's recognizing that the small, consistent effort now leads to a much bigger payoff later. It's an investment.
And setting yourself up for success each day, a morning routine seems key.
Very much so. Several sources highlight this, starting the day with intentional habits.
Like reading, meditating, goal setting.
Right. It builds momentum. It sets a positive, proactive tone for the whole day, reinforces your commitment right from the start.
And tied into all of this is responsibility, taking ownership.
Huge. Both Steve Harvey and the audiobook are really strong on this. A no excuses mentality.
Winners find solutions. Losers find excuses.
That's the gist. People who are consistent take responsibility for their actions and results. Excuses are just self-sabotage, really.
Yeah.
They stop you from taking the necessary action.
Okay, so we've got practical tools, ideas about discomfort, routines, but what about the mental game, the internal stuff that trips us up?
Yeah, the mental barriers, this is critical, and the audiobook really digs in here.
Like what kind of barriers?
Well, recognizing resistance is step one. That feeling of, oh, I don't want to, or fear, or doubt, procrastination.
The usual suspects.
Exactly. And the key is seeing that resistance not as a stop sign, but as a test.
A test of your commitment.
Yes. It doesn't mean you should stop. It just means it's testing how much you want it.
What about that little voice of self-doubt? I can't do this. I'm not good enough.
You have to challenge it actively. The audiobook stresses this. Remind yourself, it's just a thought. It's not reality.
Easier said than done sometimes.
True, but it's a practice. And related to that is perfectionism.
The enemy of good enough.
Totally. Perfectionism often leads straight to procrastination. You wait for the perfect conditions, the perfect mood.
Which never comes.
Right. So imperfect action, taken consistently, is always better than perfect inaction.
Just get started, even if it's messy.
Exactly. And the language we use matters too.
Yeah.
The audiobook suggests reframing I have to do this into I get to do this.
Shifting from obligation to opportunity.
Yes. It's a subtle shift, but it can really change your perspective and lower that internal resistance.
What else helps with the mental side?
Visualization. Actually picturing yourself succeeding, picturing yourself as that disciplined, consistent person.
Seeing it to believe it, kind of?
Sort of. It reinforces the identity you're trying to build. And also combating overthinking.
Analysis paralysis.
Right. When you're stuck thinking, the advice is just act. Do something. Clarity often comes from doing, not before it.
And turn excuses into challenges.
Yeah, instead of I don't have time, maybe it's how can I find 10 minutes? Turns you from victim to problem solver.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly. The science bit. How does repetition actually lead to mastery?
It's about neural pathways. The audiobook and your notes touch on this.
Like carving a path in your brain.
Pretty much. The first time you do something new, the path is weak. But every time you repeat it.
They get stronger, clearer, easier.
Exactly. The action becomes more automatic, requires less conscious thought. Like learning to ride a bike. You don't think about every little movement eventually.
And does that repetition also build confidence?
Absolutely. As the action becomes easier and more familiar, the fear associated with it tends to decrease. You know you can do it because you've done it so many times.
Mastery comes from just grinding out the fundamentals.
That's what Jim Rohn emphasizes. Relentless repetition of the basics.
Okay, but life isn't smooth. Setbacks happen. We all fall off the wagon sometimes. How do we handle that without giving up?
Steve Harvey has some great advice here. First, understand that failure isn't the opposite of success.
It's part of the process.
Exactly. It's a learning opportunity. So after a setback, you might need to adjust your expectations slightly.
Okay.
But crucially, don't lower your standards for yourself.
Maintain the vision, even if the timeline shifts.
Right. And focus on what's next. Don't dwell on what you lost or the mistake. What's the immediate next step to get back on track?
Resilience.
That's the key word the audiobook uses. Bounce back quickly. Don't let one missed workout turn into a missed week. Get back to it the very next opportunity.
The faster the better, probably. Less time for negative momentum to build.
Definitely. Which links back to tracking, actually.
How so?
Well, tracking helps you see when you've slipped, but also helps you see the progress you had been making. It gives you clarity.
And motivation to keep the streak going or restart it.
Exactly. It provides a visual proof of your commitment and progress, like a roadmap. Seeing how far you've come makes you want to keep going.
Okay, so pulling it all together. What are the big mindset shifts needed for lifelong consistency?
A growth mindset is fundamental, believing your abilities aren't fixed, that you can develop them with effort.
So seeing challenges as opportunities again.
Yes, opportunities to learn and get stronger, not signs that you're incapable.
And believing you can figure things out.
That's self-efficacy, trusting that even if you don't know how right now, you can find a way. And underpinning it all,
Let me guess. No excuses.
you got it. Taking full responsibility for your actions and your results. That's the bedrock.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, if there's one core message, one big takeaway.
It's that consistency really is the superpower. It's not about flashy bursts of motivation.
No magic bullets.
No, it's about those small, persistent actions. Showing up, especially when you don't feel like it. Cultivating that discipline. That's what builds achievements over time. Trust the process.
That's a really solid, encouraging message. Okay, so for you, our listener, here's something to chew on. Think about one area, just one, where you've been relying on that hit or miss motivation.
Where things feel a bit sporadic.
Yeah. And ask yourself, what's one tiny, almost ridiculously small, consistent action you could start, like today?
Maybe it's just reading one page, doing one push-up, writing one sentence.
Exactly, something super small. And then just imagine, what could the cumulative effect of that tiny step done day after day after day look like 6 months from now, a year from now? How might that reshape things?
It's powerful to think about.
It really is. We've obviously just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore on habit formation, the psychology behind it all.
Definitely encourage you to keep exploring that.
Yeah. But hopefully this gives you a solid foundation and some real tools. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.